We are live. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone out there. Hopefully, we're starting to get some people starting to join in on the interview. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Breaking Bread with Corey. If you haven't joined us yet, you're going to be excited what you're going to see. We kicked off this week celebrating International Women's Day with the Marsha Jones from Urban Connoisseurs. We had such a great discussion, an amazing woman, and that's what this month is about. Celebrating you, ladies, you, the powerful women that are out there in this industry, whether you're brewers, distillers, or winemakers. We are celebrating you. And tonight we have some more talent. We just finished an interview just not too long ago with another great ambassador of the industry, Elise Carpenter. Some whiny chick. You got to follow her. What an amazing story and what an amazing ambassador to the industry. What knowledge. I learned so much and it was such a fun interview. But we have a lot in store for you tonight. And before we kick things off, as I was stating in prior posts, that I'm going to start to share with you a little quick pairing idea. This has been one of my specialties in wine and cheese, and just some small foods like bites, mouche bouche type things. And tonight we are going to be doing some really fun pairing for you. So tonight I'm highlighting Trader Joe's vegan chocolate chip cookies. If you haven't had these yet, these are dope. These are sick. I love these things. But with this pairing tonight, we are going to be pairing it with an amazing vintage port, 2010 Bailiana. It's a combination of Petite Syrah, Cab, and Cab Franc. And it is absolutely galactic, as Han Solo would say on this glass. Yep, that's right. So I'm going to leave all my sharing ideas, my pairing ideas with you on every on my page. So if you have any questions or if you'd like to share some of your creative pairing ideas, I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and submit that. You can message me. Maybe I could even share it live. That would be a great thing. So without further ado, we have an amazing guest for you tonight. And I see her, and let me see if I can load her in. Here we go. And I am so excited to share this screen with the one and amazing. This lady doesn't need any introduction. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing this evening?
Good. How are
I'm
you?
fine. I'm trying to see if I can get a better picture here. But I am here. How are you?
Well, good. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Go ahead and introduce yourself. If people around the world should know who you are.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'm just a country girl from Texas. I'm Theodora Lee, the owner of Theopolis Vineyards in the Yorkville Highlands of Anderson Valley. I am a full-time partner at Littler Mendelsohn in San Francisco, and I take care of my 94-year-old mother in Texas. So I am just a tad bit busy these days.
Well, thank you for joining us here on Breaking Bread. You know, we're going to celebrate you. I'm going to do a little toast with a little vintage port and chocolate chip cookies, a vegan chocolate chip cookie from Trader Joe's.
I think that's a great combination.
Absolutely. One of my favorite pairings that I love doing. And a lot of consumers don't know that they can have a chocolate chip cookie with their port, even their cab. It is just dynamic. And
I will tell you, the chocolate chip cookie also goes very well with my estate-grown Petite Syrah, because it is a beautiful wine to pair with chocolate, dark chocolate in particular.
That's not the 96 point Petite Sirah you're talking
Well, I would say that
about.
2018 did get 96 points, but I would say all of my Petite Sirahs would go well with chocolate chip cookies.
Yes, I love that. I love that. All right, well let's go right into it. I love for you to share your story. Tell the viewer out there. Acquaint yourself with them. Tell them about yourself.
Well, as I said, I'm a country girl from Texas, grew up in Dallas. At a small age, I wanted to ride horses. And back in East Texas, where my grandparents had a small farm, the boy cousins would get to ride the horses. The girl cousins didn't, because girls did not get their legs and throw them up over a horse in Texas in the 60s and 70s. And so I would cry, cry, cry. My father finally said to me, one day I will buy you a horse. And he made true to that promise. He bought himself a thoroughbred, myself a quarter horse. So every weekend we would go outside of Dallas to Ellis County. We would ride horses. I learned to drive on a tractor at the age of 8. I would rope cattle. I did all of these farming things. And so I grew up going to a farm every weekend, although my parents were educators. So when I moved to California, some of the partners in my law firm had weekend homes in Napa, Sonoma. And so back in the 80s, when you had a brief due to a partner, you didn't have an email or a fax. You had to actually drive that brief to the partner's home. And so Barbara Diodoni, one of my mentors in law, she and her husband had a place in Hillsburg. They grew Zinfandel, Cabernet, and a little Petite. And so I got first introduced to vineyard living through working as a partner, as an associate for the partners at my firm. And then I said, wow, this is kind of interesting. I could be a grape farmer. I couldn't have livestock because, I'm a full-time lawyer. It's a lot of work to keep up livestock. And Texas, land is cheaper than it is in California. So our land in Texas was only 30 minutes away from our home in the city, whereas California, it's hard to afford property. So I developed this passion that one day I wanted to be a grape farmer in the 80s. But it wasn't until 2001 that I bought 20 acres in the Yorkville Highlands of Anderson Valley. And of course, I inherited sheep. I inherited chickens. I love the chickens. They laid some great eggs. The sheep, they couldn't catch at the close of the escrow. So one sheep I gave to a neighbor for a pet. The other one, the neighbor took for food. And, that's how I started. I planted my vineyard in 2003, had my first harvest in 2006. I sold my grapes to a guy by the name of Mike Officer at Carlisle and Parker. The wine critic gave the wine made for my grapes in 96. That's how I got started in the wine business. And all I ever wanted to do was be a grower and have a vineyard designation. And now I do have that. Halcon Vineyards is a neighbor in the Yorkville Highlands who had bought my fruit, and they get to put Theopolis Vineyard on the bottle. So that was my goal. Well, then in 2012, I actually picked the grapes because it started raining. And unfortunately, if you don't pick when it starts raining, the grapes can prune. And I delivered 8 tons of grapes to the then buyer. He rejected those grapes. I was forced to bottle wine. I had no money because I lost my shirt in real estate in the Great Recession. So I found a place to crush them. And then I had to figure out what to do with the grapes, make juice or make wine. And because I had no money, I bartered to get the wine made. And that 2012 Petite won gold at Sunset Magazine competition. So that's how I actually got into producing wine. And then in 2013, after having gone through the ABC, the TTB, and all of these alphabets of the government to just bottle commercially, I decided, well, let me just stick with it. 2013, I planned my 2013 Petite Sirah, and that won Best in Class. And if you go to Psalm Journal, you'll see that. So we have done very well with our Petit Sirah. Every producer, every person who bottles our Petit Sirah makes award-winning wines.
That is an amazing story. I'm like sweating already. Wow. That was a workout. I was like, whoa. And for those who are joining us, we are sharing the screen celebrating Women's History Month with the Theodora Lee, also known as Theo-patra Queen of the Vineyards. I love that name. You know, what I love the name Theopolis Vineyards. Can you tell us about how that name came about?
Well, my God-given name is Theodora, and I pledged Delta Sigma Theta at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. And as part of the pledging of a Greek sorority, you get a Greek line name. And my Greek line name was Theopolis, Theopolis. And so that was on the back of my Greek letter jacket. And I was dubbed Theo-patra by some Hollywood folks who saw me on the tractor at Theopolis Vineyards, and they dubbed me Theo-patra Queen of the Vineyards. Now that was all when I was just a grower. And so when I was forced to bottle wine with the 2012 vintage, I had 2 years to raise money for caps and bottles. And so my neighbor, who is a graphic artist, was at the dinner where I got to entertain Diane Carroll, who was one of my childhood idols. It was her and her goddaughter who named me Theo-patra Queen of the Vineyards. And Jerry Reese was there. He actually hosted the dinner, and we were talking, and that's when they came up with that name. 2 years later, when I got ready to come up with a label, I commissioned Mr. Reese to prepare that label. He does a lot of wine labels, and he remembered that, and he gave me 3 models. One like Cleopatra, Theopatra, 2 others. And of course, when I saw the Theopatra one, I fell in love. The only thing I said, I love the concept, but you made the woman too skinny. I'm a big, bold woman. So you need to go back, put some hips on that Cleopatra to make her a Theopatra. And that's what he did. And that is the logo right there.
I love it. I love it. Such a great story. You know, hearing your start, you know, I was reading all about it, and it is just an amazing thing that you've done, creating just a small plot of sheep land and creating this beautiful vineyard. And, you know, the one thing is, you know, I haven't traveled much being a dad and everything with COVID and stuff, but I really wanted to know, because of your wines, the beauty of your wines. Can you describe to me, if I couldn't see, what would your vineyards look like? How would your winery look like if you were to describe it to me in your best descriptive way?
Well, that's one that's very difficult. I use my left brain a lot more than my right brain, and the right brain is the creative side. Well, I would say that the vision is a small plot of land that rolls up the hill, terraced vineyards surrounded by fir and redwood trees, with beautiful birds flying throughout the property, and very calm, serene, peaceful, and tranquil. It is a beautiful plot of land. I'm surrounded by fir and redwoods, which is why doing escrow, we actually hired Professor Thomas from the Santa Rosa Junior College School of Viticulture to do soil digs to make sure the land was suitable for growing grapes. And then after we closed escrow, we did further soil samples, and we did an environmental study. We lose sun at about 6 o'clock because we are surrounded by fir and redwoods. It's where the redwoods meet the vineyards. And he did an analysis with the nursery and determined that Petit Sirah was the best grape to grow on this property. And I think he was right, because everyone who has sourced their grapes from us has done a very good job making fine wine. And so it is for me a place of peace and tranquility. I have a very, very busy life. I love it, but when I'm there, even if I'm working in the fields, even if I'm driving my tractor or pruning or, thinning, I still find peace and joy and happiness on this small piece of land.
That just sounds wonderful. I grew up with my dad was a musician and real big working man. He was a truck driver, but every chance you'd get, especially when you get home, we would listen to music, and I always put music in things that I'm involved in that I kind of reminiscent or compare things to. And the way you were describing your vineyards, I hear music, beautiful music,
Well,
jazz. I hear soul. That just sounds. I love redwood trees, and I'm a man of the outdoors, and that just sounds amazing. Where's my ticket?
Well, hey, you have an open invitation, and it is, the land, as I said, is full of, fern redwood trees, and there are old logging trails throughout the property, and you can actually walk through, and it's just a really beautiful place. I love sunshine, and at first I was a little disturbed because I love sun, but I love the peace and tranquility. And when you're walking through those trees, no matter how cold it is, no matter how hot it is, it keeps the temperature very temperate. And it's just a beautiful place. If you've ever been on Highway 128, it's one of the most beautiful highways in the United States. And,
Yeah.
I'm closer to Cloverdale because I'm literally on the border of Sonoma and Mendocino. So I'm only 15 minutes from downtown Cloverdale and about an hour to the coast going through the Anderson Valley. So we're the Yorkville Highlands of the Anderson Valley before you go there. And we get all four seasons. I mean, the vineyard has had snow. It gets 110 degrees in the summer. It is perfect. And it's just a wonderful neighborhood. I was fortunate to not be able to have enough money to afford Napa or Sonoma because I think we got the great environment and the soil in the Yorkville Highlands to grow outstanding grapes.
You don't need it. It's a great showcase of showing. California has so much diversity growing regions, everything from the south, from Temecula all the way up. And, even in between, you have areas like Malibu that are growing grapes. You have small area, vineyards and winemakers in Malibu that are growing things in the Los Angeles mountains there. But that is a great thing to kind of showcase that beautiful wines can come from another region other than Napa and Sonoma, and they're actually taking some of your grapes and producing some great wines. And that's awesome. That is a great thing to hear.
I always say, with no offense to my friends in Napa, but they did a better PR campaign than most AVA areas. And, Mendocino as a county and Yorkville Highlands and Anderson Valley as individual AVAs are really doing a great job. And there are other growers in the area who are knocking it out of the park. Halcon is one of the guys, the wineries that has sourced my grapes, and they do one magnificent job with their fruit and with their production. And so there's tons of folks in the Yorkville Highlands that are doing very good and growing great grapes and making wonderful wine.
That's awesome. And just to let the viewer know out there, if you want to ask either myself or Theodora a question, go ahead and don't put it in the comment box. Go ahead and put it in that small bubble with a little question mark. We love to hear any questions that you might have. She would love to hear any questions you might have. As far as you know, you were talking about Mendocino, and I love that area. Fort Bragg, the Skunk Train. That was one of my many pleasant visits that are exciting visits that I got to see doing that skunk train into the redwoods. That was amazing, and how they flip it and do all that. That is just
It's wonderful. I love it. I was out there. I mean, because I take care of my 94-year-old mother, when I'm back in California, I try to do things that are enjoyable. And that's one of my favorite activities. I love the Mendocino coast.
oh yeah,
And because I'm also frugal, I usually stay in Fort Bragg as opposed to the town of Mendocino because the
right,
prices are a little more reasonable. And there's this wonderful little resort that you literally is situated on the beach. You can walk to the beach and you can open up your sliding glass door and look at the ocean. And that to me is restorative. There are 2 times a year that I've got to be on water, and that's my biological birthday, and that's every new year when we're bringing a new year. It's refreshing and renewing, and it's a way of me starting anew. And Mendocino
right.
Coast is the most beautiful I've ever seen. And I've traveled all over the world. Before my father died in 2016, I did 4 or 5 trips a year. My last big trip was to Egypt. And I bottle a grape called Symphony, and it's a crossing between Grenache, Greece, and Muscat. And Grenache is, of course, you know, a beautiful grape. And then Muscat of Alexandria. So I got to go to Alexandria, Egypt, and it was just amazing to go down the Rhone. And they actually grow grapes in Egypt. People don't know that.
Wow.
But travel, music, you were talking about music. Last night I did an event with the Washington Performing Arts and an opera singer. We paired my wines with her performance. And, you know, I love the arts. I traveled to
Oh yeah,
Art Basel, Switzerland. I've traveled to Cuba on art excursions. And to me, that's what life is about. Life is about good food, great wine, and travel, and
absolutely.
music and the arts. And when you combine all of that, that's what makes living worth it.
I love that. I love that. It's just so that's romantic words coming out of your mouth. That is just beautiful. I love that. Poetic, beautiful. Um, you know, as far as what you were talking about as the winemaking in Mendocino, how do you see the cultures as far as wine growing in California? Do you see a lot more diversity opening up for not only women vintners, but women of color vintners?
The last year has been pretty amazing to actually focus on expanding opportunities for people of color, women of color in this industry. Uh, Black professionals are there. They have been there. People have not always paid attention, but as of last summer, when the focus was on Black Lives Matter, people finally took note that there are professionals in this industry who look different than the traditional Italian family or
Right.
the long-standing, you know, generation after generation winemaker. You know, I was a charter member of the Association of African American Vintners when I was just a grower. We had like 8 members at one time, and now our membership has gone to over 100 members. And there's been a cooperation with Wine Enthusiast magazine. These are amazing opportunities that we are so glad that they're coming to life. Um,
Right.
Julia Connie, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she started Black Wine Professionals, and she has highlighted all of the sommeliers, the educators, the writers, the journalists, I mean, there are a lot of Black women in particular, and people of Latin backgrounds doing amazing work in the wine business. Now, there's someone has asked, are we doing any tours?
Yeah.
We don't do tours. Unfortunately, we have a big event. We didn't have it in 2020, and we probably will not have it in 2021 just because of COVID. But we have a huge harvest and bottle release party. And that's the one time we open up our property to visitors. We have wine tasting in the garden. We have wine tasting in the small little funky tasting room. We open up the pool. We have an old-fashioned Texas barbecue. We have live music and dancing. But we don't have tours. I am a full-time lawyer. I am my only employee. I have a wine daughter who helps me with everything that is going on with the vineyard. But we just don't have the manpower for tours because the property is 2 hours north of San Francisco, and we practice law in San Francisco. And with COVID, we're not doing anything until the vaccine is available to all adults, which I understand is supposed to happen by May. So I got my second Pfizer vaccine last month with my 94-year-old mother because we need to do that. And she obviously at 94 is on the list of number one. So I was able to piggyback with her.
That's amazing. And I think what you said, you touched on too, is that, I believe as a Latino male, there needs to be more out there. There needs to be more representation of Black-owned wineries, Hispanic-owned wineries. I've been in the industry for several years, and to find out that I had to search on the internet in order for me to get information, and I, being, an ambassador, I've been involved in the retail front lines for many years, and to not know that there was this many out there, and it's really something that we should be embracing, supporting, and celebrating. Just hearing your story and what you've done, how busy you are, what you're trying to do for the industry, it's inspiring. It's inspiring.
Well, I just think this is an exciting time. I always tell people you got to be ready for when the door opens so you can go through it. This is a incredible opportunity. And fortunately for me, we have been making award-winning wines since our 2012 vintage. And we have some wonderful wine club members and some followers that have taken advantage of drinking our wines through the years. But last year, the world, I think, stood up and took notice. There were all kind of lists coming together of, wineries of color and Black wineries, and people spreading the word and buying consciously. And I like to think that because we are focused on quality, not quantity, we're small. I mean, we generally have produced 800 cases between June of last year and June of this year. Our production is going to be about 1,200 cases. And that is great. And that's because of the outpouring of support we've received over the years. But we want to sustain that because our wine club is a critical part of being able to sustain that. Our members have doubled over the last year. We only do 2 shipments a year, one in November, December for the holidays, and one like in May before it gets too hot. And, people are joining our wine club and not waiting to May, but wanting the November shipment. And so that is helpful because that's regular business at least twice a year. We are fortunate that we try to celebrate. Just last Monday, we had a, International Women's Day, sale, and people were responsive to that. We try to work with various organizations and corporations, and we do a lot of virtual tastings. We've got one coming up this Saturday, a person is on the call from Thrillers, Fillers, and Spillers. We have one with Black Girls Wine Society this Saturday, where we ship the wine in advance and we do a virtual tasting and walk you through that. And that has been our bread and butter since COVID, because our event in September used to bring in 150 to 200 people. But, since we couldn't do it in 2020, we had to do alternative things. And now we are actually doing a lot of corporate team buildings, working with sororities and fraternities to do virtual tastings. As I mentioned, the Black Girls Wine Society, Saturday, we did a huge fundraiser for the Links chapter of Minneapolis. We had over 400 people, and we packed 3 packs of 403 packs. And it was a lot of work, but it was very fulfilling. Last night's event, we did the same thing. We shipped out the wines and then talked about them and had opera. And it was just, we are figuring out new ways to connect with the audience. And, virtual tastings, I think, are here to stay, because
absolutely,
I don't know how soon, California is still not fully opened yet. And, with the COVID numbers still rising, I don't know how soon it will be open.
Well, I love how innovative you are since this pandemic broke, and how you're willing to work through it, finding ways to work through it. Hats off if I were wearing the hat to you. You just, it's an inspiring thing, and, as far as where can we get your wines? I'm in Oregon, so it's a little difficult on some platforms to get your wines. So tell the viewer out there, how can we get your wines? Where can we get your wine?
You need to go to theoplasvineyards.com. We ship to all of the states. All you have to do is order. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Theopolis Vineyards. We're on Twitter at Theopolis V. But go to THEOPOLIS vineyards.com. You order our wine and we will ship it to you. We are in very few retail stores. We're in a few wine bars in Texas. We are in a few wine bars in Massachusetts. We are in a few wine stores in San Francisco. We are in a few wine stores in Chicago. I am the sole marketer. And so we are actually licensed in Illinois because you can self-distribute. I'm from Texas, and so I have a nice following there, so I'm licensed in Texas. I'm licensed in Florida because of some restaurants that wanted to carry our wines in Miami, and I'm licensed in Massachusetts. And we go to those states where there is a demand, because you wouldn't believe, every state you have to get licensed in that state to distribute your wine. And so it just does not work. People have wanted me to get licensed in Georgia. Atlanta is a place where I went to college and have a lot of friends and followers. Well, Georgia, when you have to have a distributor there, and it's like a marriage. Once you get connected with a distributor, it's hard to break loose. And I have not found that distributor that I want to marry in Georgia. Until that happens, I will continue to sell my wine to residents, but it's not going to be in a store or a bottle shop, because this is a small lot vineyard and handcrafted winery. So our production is not enough to be in Kroger or to be in Albertsons or Safeway. Whole Foods carried our wine in Northern California because we were one of 6 Mendocino wines that were selected in a contest to be featured doing their buy local program. And they bought, that was my largest commercial order ever. But again, that was a one-off, and our production is just not sufficient enough. We're not a McBride sister. We're not the largest Black-owned winery. We are a small boutique. We actually want to keep it that way because quality is what we're focused on. I mean, we could produce far more fruit, but we cut back half of our fruit during the growing season, so the nutrients are focused in on the grapes that we're going to actually pick.
I see that there's a question. Which vintage is your favorite, if that's possible, on your site?
Well, let's see. The 2018 is the one that got the 96 points wine enthusiast, but it's really young. Okay. I actually like the 2016 Petit Syrah because it is very sophisticated and very nuanced. It's much lighter than the 2017 and definitely lighter than the 2018 version. So it is just one of those that I really love, the 2016. I love the 2015 because it is a big, bold, it's aged well, it's easy to open the bottle. That would be, it depends on my mood. If I want to just have a nice glass of wine, just light, I would probably go with the 2016. If I want to have me some oxtails or some porterhouse steak or ribeye, I'm probably going to go with the 2015 or 2017 vintage, if that's possible. I see my
so if you're describing
Google,
if you're describing the 16 to the 18,
excuse me,
would you describe which one would you describe as Cindy Portier, or which one would you describe as Billy D. Williams?
Oh Lord, well I would have to say, well, I have long loved Billy D. Williams because the movie Mahogany, I grew up watching Billy D. Williams and had a massive crush on him. So I would have to say the 2018 is the finest wine that I have produced today. And so, in my opinion, Billy D. is still a fine man. And so I would have to give him the 2018. Theo-patra is a very classy guy. And I would say probably the 2017 would be one that I would put with him. And then, the 2016, I just have to say is the lighter of my petites. And therefore, I always recommend that for people who don't like as much of a bigger, bold wine. Now, I am very excited about a bottling that I just did in December. I did my first blend, Cuvée Cerise. And for those of you who have had it, I believe Wine Skipping, Elisa from Google, I did a tasting with them in February last month. And I believe the Cuvée Cerise was part of their package. And I will have to tell you, it is my favorite go-to, okay? And my wine daughter, Ashante Brown, I always say we got to keep it far away from us because when we're packing and shipping and doing all of this work, it's really easy to just sip on that. And that's a bottle you can open, and it's still young. It's a 2019 vintage, but it has my Petit Syrah. It has Syrah, which is a different grape than Petit Syrah. And then we have Mourvedre in there. And it is a Rhone blend, but it's not your traditional Rhone blend. It is a Theo-patra's Cuvée Cerise, which is unique. And I have to say, my favorite right now.
It sounds very voluptuous. I love the fruit.
It is voluptuous. And if you know anything about me, I'm a voluptuous woman. And so I have to make wines in my own image. And, I hadn't planned to bottle any Pinots at all because I think Pinot is a wimpy wine. And most Pinots from the Willamette Valley or from France, they're a little bit too earthy for me, too much minerality. I mean, I don't like that style of Pinot, but most people do. So I have a Pinot for anyone's liking. I have a Santa Lucia Highlands Pinot for those people who love the minerality, and they can have that. But the Yorkville Highlands Pinot Noir, we were talking about it last night, is a fruit forward. It has forest floor because that's part of the profile of a Pinot, but it is more fruit forward, lots of berries that come out. And I want everyone to think of my wine as being fruit forward. That is the signature that I want people to think of. And I am not interested in tasting dirt. So if you want dirt, you can go to Willamette Valley, you can go over to France, but I want the fruit to speak for the wine. And that's what we try to do in our winemaking process. And we started using whole clusters in 2018. And that is actually adding a lot of fruit and character to our wines. And that's why I think the 2018 is so outstanding.
Well, I know our time is starting to wind down, but I did want to ask this question because we are in that time. We're celebrating Women's History Month. And so what advice would you like to give to those little girls or the future women that are actually starting to make their path into the winemaking? What advice could you give them to help them succeed?
Basically, you can achieve anything you set your mind to doing. There are no limitations. The world is your oyster, but be patient. Be prepared so when the opportunity presents itself, you can walk through the door and hit it out of the park. The other thing is perseverance. Nothing in life is easy. Trust me, those who know when I first planted my grapes, we had some issues. I field grafted over. I had some Zinfandel at first because I was told that was a great blender with Petit Syrah. But I was getting, 2,800, 3,200 a ton for Petit and 1,800. So I field grafted over all to Petit Syrah. So you're going to have some obstacles. As my father used to say, everybody has vicissitudes in life. It's how you face those and how you come out on the other side. And so you have to be patient and you have to persevere and you have to be excellent because it is just not acceptable to be mediocre. It's not just acceptable to just be getting along. You have to be exceptional in everything you do because it is so important that when the opportunity presents yourself, you show you are a deserving member of the wine club or a deserving member of the organization, or you are deserving vintner, or you're deserving, agriculture. I believe anything you want to accomplish, you can do it, but you have to work hard, be prepared, and be excellent at everything you do.
That's inspiring. It's inspiring me. And, it should inspire all the women out there that are on their journey, starting to begin their journey. Thank you so much for sharing your time. I know you had a busy schedule. We were going back and forth, but, I really appreciate this. This meant a lot, and I really appreciate you sharing your story. What a story, and what an incredible story of what you've gone through and where you're headed. And, don't forget to follow Theodora on her Instagram site at Theopolis Vineyards, correct? Right?
Correct.
And also don't forget to follow her at her website, right? We can go to theopolisvineyards.com. Is that what it is?
That's correct. And, it's very important. Check out our website. We encourage you to join our wine club. I encourage you to sign up for our mailing list. We do not actually do a lot of mailers because I am a full-time lawyer. I am a partner in a law firm, and you're only so good as your last success, your case, and the clients that you bring in. I have to just tell you, I have a passion for wine. I still love practicing law, and so I'm too young to retire from law, and I still have bills because wine is great, but it does not pay the bill, especially when you have a land and you have a mortgage and you have a vineyard you have to farm and you have winemaking costs. And so people think of this as a business that's glamorous, but you don't know that when you're on that tractor, when you're out there pruning and you're sweating and you're in the cellar room and you're doing the work to make the wine, but more important, when it gets in the bottle, you got to get out there and sell it. And then you got to pack and ship it. And there's just not enough money in my household to pay other people to do those things. So I work hard. I have a passion for living, and I encourage all of you to find your passion and pursue it, and life would be so fulfilling.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And don't forget to keep on to follow Theodora on her Instagram site, Theopolis Vineyards. And also go ahead, join her wine club, follow her, go to her website, theopolisvineyards.com. It is our job as ambassadors, whether you're a somm wine specialist, if you're a distributor, a representative, it is our job to make the small go big. And we got to support those right now. We have the opportunity to do this. And thank you so much again, Theodora, for your time. I am so honored, and so, I was just so excited. I was telling my wife, I'm going to be interviewing Theodora Lee.
Well, as I said, I'm just a country girl from Texas. And, you know, Corey, I love people. That's why I'm an employment lawyer, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I love specializing in pleasure in the bottle, which is what I like to think of when we talk about Theopolis Vineyards. Thank you so much, Corey, for having me. And thank you for joining us. And many of you I will see on Saturday. For those of you who have joined, thank you again for joining. And thanks so much for your support of Theopolis Vineyards throughout the years, and especially over the last year. We couldn't do it without you.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I know you have to go, so let's see. All right. All right. Well,
I'm just learning all about this, you know, Instagram Live, because I'm still I'm a Zoom person, and if we were on Zoom, I have a picture of the vineyard in the background, but I don't know that you could do that in Instagram Live.
Right. I think you just go ahead and just click out if you wanted to.
Okay, very well. Thank you very much, Corey. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. And thank you so much, everybody that has joined us on Monday to earlier this afternoon. We have more talented women to come throughout the month of March. I know some of you are actually going to be joining me and breaking bread with me this month. So I appreciate you. And don't forget to follow Theodora again at Theopolis Vineyards on Instagram, and also at theopolisvineyards.com. And I can't say it enough. I cannot say it enough. We ambassadors, whether you're the sommeliers, the wine specialists in the department, push these beautiful bottles. These names are the ones that should be up there, and we should be supporting and embracing. We should have that power. So support those. And thank you for joining me again. Until next time, stay healthy, stay masked up, and cheers.